these are things like you would not normally talk to almost a perfect stranger, and especially not another woman about.
Exactly.
Oh my God. You know, and I start the conversation off very subtly with my elder women. I'm just like, yeah, I'm being suppressed in my home, and I'm being demasculated, and I don't know how to. And so then it is. It's just like, okay, just watch. I have nothing else. I have no argument here. I can't continue to play into this. If you'll just sit and observe, then you'll see what we're doing here.
So JB, tell me your name, and then tell me like how many kids, where do you live, just some basic stuff.
Okay. My name is JB Noll. It stands for Jonathan Bradley. Wonderful name my mother gave me. Nice. I live in Eugene, Oregon. I currently don't have any kids of my own, but my partner has 2 daughters, 11 and 9. And we have them every other week, 1 week on, 1 week off. I have 3 housemates. That's 2, including my partner, Nicole and Carly, and my partner's name is Jamie. And Nicole also has a daughter that's 10. So we have 9, 10, 11.
In the house?
Little girl in the house. Yeah, week on, week off.
Okay.
And most of the times those weeks are the same, and every once in a while they're shifted. So there's pretty much kids around most of the time. And then our third roommate, Carly, she is, a very individual, lives a polyamorous existence, and super cool, well-collected, grounded human being. Really have a lot of appreciation for all the women in our home, and then just the work that they do every day, the self-work and the outside work.
So they're all women in your home.
They're all women in my home, and currently my mother is visiting, and she's staying for a month, and she's staying in our yurt out in the back. So
okay,
all women.
So this is pretty intense. As you know, when I think of a man having to deal with a lot of women, especially with the way that women are these days, and I know that I'm unusual in how I see this, is that women are culturally sort of set up and forced to be a certain way, which does not necessarily help the relationship, the man-woman relationship, whether it's partners, whether it's father-daughter, whether it's mother-son, whether it's just friendships, because women are super independent, super alpha, I guess you could say. You know, they've stepped into this alpha role because of expectations from culture. And that doesn't leave a lot of room for another alpha, which a man naturally is. And so what I'm looking for from you, from stories from men, is just not complaining, but I think men have been silenced. You know, I think men have to tiptoe so much around feminism, around women having the right to be a certain way these days. And I'm saying we, like I'm a man, but we as men, I'm coming from like siding with men. Men have to be so careful with how they approach a woman, how they talk to a woman, what they say. And women can just say it like it is. And it almost always is not the best for relationships. So if you can just tell me if any of this resonates with you, if any of this feels like the situation, and you can be totally honest, because this is a show for men that we're doing, and I'm writing a book too, but I would like women to understand from a lot of men that it's not a personal thing. It's pervasive in our culture. So
yep.
You can go.
Yeah. Okay. So what is all that? Just brings a flurry of stuff up for me from being raised by a single mom, um, to living with two single mothers, and what that adds to a woman's role and strength in society, and and kind of creates an alpha kind of energy. You know, you got to take care of your kids. You got to do it on your own. Um, and so I can understand that strength. And in fact, it's what I appreciate and has taught me that women are more powerful than men, but you can't really convince them all. Um, so I think the thing that comes up for me is like, how do we begin to have the dialogue that's non-offensive and doesn't stir negative, or we're not putting someone up on a high horse and putting someone down, that we can talk about what does this look like, the age of Aquarius, these 1,000 years of returning to the feminine energy, and um and allowing the masculine to soften but still serve its purpose and still be respected and valued. um, you know, the course of nature and genetics is that men just happen to be able to be the laborers and do some of the hard work. Not that women can't, but we just like, you know, it's kind of the thing. Like I kind of see as being a modified woman and in the ability to kind of be that. And like we've lost that appreciation. You know, women my mother's age, and I have some elder friends of mine that are her age, the appreciation they have for hardworking men willing to show up and make things happen is it's completely the opposite side of the spectrum of the mid 30s to 40-year-old woman in modern America, and maybe the world, I don't know, but well, definitely not in South America, but in the United States, we're dealing with this interesting struggle of feeling suppressed, being suppressed, wanting to gain that power, but only having all these traumas of suppression to work from. And how do we not perpetuate that back while the masculine is relinquished to the feminine here over the next 1,000 years?
That was really so eloquently said, because I believe that this is the issue for all of American men. I mean, unless they're super chauvinist and like ignore women completely and ignore needs. Do you, before I answer any of those things, do you find that to be the case for a lot of your friends? That do you have these conversations with other friends that are similar to this feeling?
I do tend to draw in a more hypersensitive um, men around me. So there is a variance of understanding that they've dealt with this sort of thing with throughout their life at some point. Um, so yeah, there's definitely, but it's also one of those things where it's like, oh yeah, it's touchy, you know, yeah, better to just leave that one alone, type of thing. Um, and I bring it up in my house. I do say, hey, there needs to be a more level of communication. I need to be able to be met when I want to have a meeting or talk about something. There needs to be hold as much value as importance. You know, I have a different, when I'm having a meeting, it's not a crisis for me. It's just, hey, we need to talk about this. And with the girls, usually like it's poised as a crisis, emergency. We have to talk about this right now, and it has to be a thing. And so I make myself really available. And I think that we all just need to be more available to one another's needs, male and female.
Mm-hmm. So, do these conversations that you have with your girls or your wife or partner or women, do they lead to a resolve, or do you still find frustration in it?
You know, sometimes they do, and oftentimes there is just like this kind of empty space that
Okay, so you were saying, what's that?
Yeah, sometimes the conversations the conversations that I'm having with my partner, no, it's it's a variance because the conversations are different depending on who's struggling with what. Now, our roommate who's polyamorous, Carly, she's extremely grounded. She does a huge amount of work. And when I have this conversation with her, her response to me is, "Oh, that sounds like you're in this scared feminine state and you're allowing the feminine to like boss your feminine side around. And your feminine would actually never allow that. So you have to create this boundary." But it's like, I need to learn that. That's a taught thing to allow my feminine to create a boundary. Because when I create a boundary with a feminist woman, it does not seem like it's coming from my feminine place. It's like, hey, that's not appropriate. You're kind of putting me down as a man, and I have sensitive feelings and care about what you say, and I don't reflect all hatred and bigotry and just all this stuff. It's just like, it's like we wear one mask some days, you know, and it's like, we're also individual, you know, it's just not cookie cutter. So it becomes hard to come to a conclusion with dialect because it's different with each person and how you can engage.
That is so complicated. I mean, the thing is, I just feel so bad for men because men are working so hard, like extremely hard to try to accommodate all these women's personality or just the communication. And you're right. Every woman is going to be different. She's going to take things differently depending on her background, her culture, how she was raised, how old she is. That's a lot for a man to juggle. I think that's like, for me, in my opinion, it's too much responsibility. I feel like,
how much do you feel like that changes even from moment to moment too? Because I feel like even if you identify with your partner or one of the females in your house, those moods can change. You have to like kind of get a gauge whether it's something they just experienced or hormones or like, it's when they're on edge. I mean, and that's the way it is with anybody. It just makes it even harder to try to juggle.
It's like I have tells, with Nicole, I will make a joke and the way she responds to it will tell me whether or not we're going to have fun or if she's not in a good place. Carly pretty much is just like, with everything going on and being a person that wants to adventure into multiple relationships, she challenges herself emotionally a lot. And so I can kind of just gauge and tell, and we communicate. With my partner, Jamie, there's so much levels of depth there, and her children and the gauging of, it's like way different. Is she frustrated with the kids right now? Because that's going to be a different answer. Is she mellow and in the zen state where she can actually like, there's moments where she's totally hearing me and like, yeah, and then it's just like, nope, you're back to the male, you don't understand, you're not getting it conversation. And it's like, okay, no, I guess I'm not getting it. I'm missing something here, and I'll just go back to the eggshell side of things. So
I think that culture has set it up where men cannot win because you're trying to walk on eggshells. You're trying to be so attentive. You're trying to conjure up your feminine. You're trying to be empathetic and sit in their shoes. And it's a dance. I mean, you're like, okay, let me dance this dance. And the next moment, let me dance this dance. Is it the mommy dance? Is it the strong woman dance? And like, you have developed, and men have developed so much of their intuition, which is normally a woman's job, kind of. I think of it as a woman's job to be really intuitive and like nuanced in different relationship ways, to deal with children and feelings. And I think that's beautiful. I think that's wonderful. I think that is the modern man. Yet, women are not stepping up to the plate to assist this communication because they don't know that there's an issue. They feel this like they're entitled. They're entitled to this place. And this is really just American women. If you talk to European women, they actually laugh at American women. And I've heard this from men who are dating European women, and I've read about it. So it's really an American thing. I mean, there's so much tied into the American feminist, how women deal with sexuality in this day and age in America, which is very different from European or other countries. There's a double standard that's, of being, there's so many, not even double, there's like quadruple or sex double standards of who we are, shades of what we are and what we as women are trying to portray and what we believe about ourselves, which are quandaries inside of ourselves. So it's very sticky for a man to try to like walk so carefully because a woman doesn't even know what she's doing. And it's all these reactions to all these culturally like deep things that are rooted from way back in like tribalism, how we were held as women and supported by women as a tribe. And then we shifted out of that. I mean, that was like for our survival. We had to lean into each other. So there was a group of women who could listen to all the minutia of the day, of complaining about tasks and worries, and men didn't have to deal with that. That wasn't their job. Their job was to provide and protect. And they were good at that. They are good at that. That's the instinct. So then we moved out of tribalism into the agricultural age. And in that age, there was a little bit of sharing of wisdom for the women. They did the work with men, but then there was also sort of, that men's stuff and women's stuff, a little bit less sharing. But then once we got into the industrial age, that's when women had to be more robotic and like shut off the feminine. You were a cog in a wheel, and any of your intuition or any of that magic was a detriment. Any feminine stuff was a detriment. You had to like do the work. And
I can imagine the energy for women when, a large percentage of the male population was sent to war, to really then not with any sort of planning, I guess, to be like, okay, here, now you're going to do the masculine role too, and dump it on you. And I think, in some ways that helped us over the past 80, 60 years in understanding and appreciating like what it is to go to the factory every day and bust your butt and come home super tired. And like, and know like, hey, by any means, when things are good, I'd much rather be at home than over there getting, black charred soot face boogers in my and with whatever it is. But we don't I think the women in this day and age, there's such less structure in family. There's such less structure in them getting an example of what a hardworking male around the home is, that that becomes difficult for them to grasp the idea. And they're trying to mold it into what they think it should be. Mm-hmm. And without the experience of it, without being that woman in the 40s that got sent off to the factory when her husband went sent to war, you really don't have a place to come from to understand. It's really tricky for my partner. Her father passed away when she was 16, and they didn't have the greatest relationship. So there's tons of this unresolved stuff going on. And I learn as we talk about this, and it a lot of this too becomes along with the relationship of the parents. That relationship that a woman has had with her father to understand. Did we just get you out?
Oh, we lost your picture.
Oh, we still have audio? Okay.
We still have audio. There we go.
Oh, there we go.
The relationship with the father.
The relationship with the father, to kind of understand the role of which we have, instead of like molding us into this idea, which we don't really know what that is yet. We're all trying to figure out what this new idea and what we're supposed to be moving into, and whether that's different roles, new roles, old roles, going back to tribalism, moving forward to something we've never done, an intermingling of all of it, probably, really. We're just not like, there's not enough examples. There's not enough examples. And for me, I've noticed that women that are on the really feminist side of things, the first conversation I want to have with them is like, so how's your dad? How's your father? What's your relationship there? What's your understanding about what a man does for his family and how he feels about that? And can you get a grasp? Can you actually understand that? Because I can't explain it. Mm-hmm. It's something that I get up every day and would risk my life for, though.
Right.
You know what I mean? So, and there's nothing, you can't explain what it's like to me to be a mother, to birth a child. I'm not going to pretend to know what that is. I can try to get as close to understanding as possible. But without those roles, like without my really wonderful relationship with my mother, I don't know that I would be able to have this much I wouldn't live with all these women, that's for sure. You know, I wouldn't be able to come to, and when I talk to my mother who's visiting now and sees all this, she's like, oh my God, honey, it's so different. Like in this whole other appreciation, and you work so hard and you're doing so much for them. And, but you know, sometimes when you're not used to, when you're not understanding what that is, it's hard to see it and it's hard to appreciate it.
Yeah. So I've written a book because I know the way forward. I know that sounds really egotistical. It's not. I've basically had conversations with dozens of men for hundreds of hours. And how that happened was I was at school in the schoolyard waiting for my kids to go into school when the bell would ring, and I would talk to dads. I was a reporter. And so I'm super comfortable with people. All the moms would talk to the moms, and I would talk to the dads. I'm just really comfortable with men, not like sexual, just like they're a person to me. They're like, I can talk with them. And so I had these conversations, and I'm not a light person. I don't talk about like superficial things. I just don't have time for that. I just gotta get into the heart of stuff. So we would talk about stuff that was really on their mind, and it would go to this place. And so I know that, you know, the landscape of men, like for the past, since my kids were in kindergarten, and now they're, so that was 5, and now I have a 12-year-old, almost 13. You know, they've talked about all these things that you're talking about. And so with that, and with knowing people, with knowing women, I was also a hairstylist. So in my 20s for like 10 years. And so for me, talking with people about the relationships was fascinating. And so just connecting all these dots together, and just the way that my brain works, I can see where we've been and where we're going. And I've also done shows for Lifetime and Discovery on love and attraction. And so I have a lot of research behind what I'm looking at. I'm not just like some person who's going, oh, I talked to this guy and he said this, but really looking at connecting the dots. And so I know a way forward. I'm not saying it's for everyone. Maybe it's different for, you know, certain people. Maybe you're a polyamorous person. Maybe that wouldn't work for her. But for the masses of like people who are like you and like Zelis, and I would say a certain level of comfortability of income, not people in like survival mode, or not people who are, I don't know, there's certain people who don't fit. But for the most people that I've talked to, the men that I've talked to, I see a way forward if the woman can understand what's going on. So I've written a book, and it takes a book to really understand the complete picture of what is happening and what's happened. And so we can't just sort of, be tactical, like, oh, I'm going to try this method and that method, because there is an underneath foundation that has to happen. And that is from examples of what I've seen work way back, with older women like your mom, certain understandings of what men are, what is innate in a man, what they are just instinctively propelled and meant to do, compelled to do in life. And then for women,
that brings up something for me. I don't mean to interrupt you.
No, go.
As you mentioned, it's like elder women, my mother. What I'm also an observation that's coming to me is that the younger women in my home, they do not have older women mentors.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, this is hugely detrimental to our society, and understanding, maybe not to repeat everything that was done or wasn't all right, but there's just no concept of experience and how things change. And talking to an elder, they're just like going through it every day as it's a new thing, and it takes a lot to go through life only with experience and no wisdom.
Well, I think we're also dealing with a lot of the connections that women are having. They want support from their girlfriends that share similar views, and so it's like you build this mob mentality where you're not like actually getting the perspective from the experienced elders that have been through it and come through the other end. It's more like, yeah, girl, that's messed up. Like, don't put up with that. Like,
that's how the angry Karens have been built. All those angry Karens.
That cognitive dissonance of like, well, I know I want something to change, but I still agree with that same old wrong. You're just like, yeah, no.
That's why the tribe was crucial. That's why the tribe and the sharing of wisdom amongst women of all ages was crucial. They would walk to get water over the entire day, and wisdom was being shared from all the different grandmas and aunties and whomever. And now we don't have that. So what I'm looking at is not just the old model of what was, but borrowing some of the matriarch role, like the role of the matriarch. A woman is so much more powerful if she is the one at the foundation, the hub of the family. And if she can support the entire family to help the men to be whatever it is they want to be out in the world, then everyone in the family is supported. And she's supported too, because he is out there doing his thing and coming back happy to support the family. But a woman these days in her 30s or 40s, they're like, I'm not going to like be at home supporting. It's not even just being at home. It's a mentality. So it's the matriarch, if they see that that is such a powerful position and you can do so much as a matriarch. I think of Michelle Obama. I mean, she was an attorney. She was doing amazing things before Barack got into the presidency. And she had to step under, not really back, but under him, underneath to be the foundation of the family. And that was a really powerful role that the world could witness, and to see how she raised her daughters, how she supported him as president. And I'm not saying anything is perfect, but there are families like that who I know who have had extremely successful men going out to do things in the world. And then the women that are in that family dynamic are also very successful in what they're trying to do in their own way. But and that's kind of a whole nother chapter of my book that I'm, getting into to explain. But there is a way that a woman can feel strong, but in a really more matriarch way, where it's rooted in not this idea of feminine, but like actually what our gifts are, we're built in a certain way, and we're built to really support the entire realm. I think of it as like the king and the queen. The king needs the queen because he goes off to conquer other kingdoms. She has to hold down the fort. She's got to know her stuff. She has to be extremely powerful and strong to take care of the entire realm of the whole kingdom. So it's not a weak position. It's a partnership, you know?
It's a partnership of understanding every working facet.
Totally.
It's also understanding what we're going through when we're out day to day.
Exactly.
And knowing that it in itself is the daily journey and trial of like how we get through things.
Mm-hmm. Right now, women in their 40s and 30s, maybe 50s, but probably 40s and 30s, we're operating every day in triage mode of being a woman. It's almost like like you were saying, an emergency conversation. Everything to them is emergency because they are
crisis.
They're in crisis.
Mode.
They are. They're like, let me triage this. I think of it as like, you know, like every woman is trying to spin all these plates like a circus performer. And she thinks if these plates start spinning and she can get this one going and that one going and get a balance, life will be good, but she can never rest. So she's like, honey, get that one, I'll get this one. Okay, let's do this. And it's constant. That's not the way to run a family. That's like stress all the time, you know, and that's like the picture of what families are doing right now. So there's a completely different way. And that is really supporting from this matriarchal role. You know, does that make sense?
And that power. Yeah. Oh, I have a friend of mine, we call her the QFE, the queen of fucking everything.
Is that a ego thing or is that like rooted queen?
No, we gave her the name. She didn't take it herself.
All right.
But so she and she's almost 70. She's a sweetheart. Her husband passed away a couple years ago, and she totally has a crush on me, and we get along really well, you know. But she's a matriarch. She's not only a matriarch to her family, but she's a matriarch to our community, and is really highly respected in that power. And now here is someone that is hugely successful in her career, unbelievably talented on skill level, can do anything any man can do, if that's how we're going to measure it. And then some. Wonderful parent, wonderful sister, daughter. Her 89-year-old mother lives with her. Just unbelievable community developer, support nutritionally, all these amazing things. One of the most powerful women I know in my life. And the level of respect that she has for men is outstanding, amazing. You feel so supported. You feel so masculine. You feel so feminine and so young and in yourself because of that support, appreciation, honor, really. And this is a woman who has been, you know, she was a good-looking lady. She's been abused for her body, used in ways, and can even admit to being extremely naive about the way women and men should have been interacting. And still from all of that holds this amazing honor of that being in the matriarchal space in her space and holding that down, and then supporting men to go out and like haul 10 yards of wood chips into the yard so we can do a good garden.
Or whatever
and not
it is.
that she won't help, and not that we're trying to say you can't help, but just respecting the honor of like, yeah, go out and get it done, boys, you know, and us being really like, for whatever reason, instinctually, there's a huge level of pride and fulfillment for us to do that, especially for our women.
Yeah, it's a situation where, you know, the matriarch, you'll do the work for the matriarch and you'll be happy about it. You'll feel good because you feel respected and you want to do it. Whereas
you will jump in line to do it. You will be like, oh, man, I'm going first. You know, there will be a line of men waiting to do the work.
Whereas if somebody doesn't really respect you and they force you to do a job, you might do it, but you're going to do it begrudgingly, you know? So it's like in that dynamic of your other relationship, when your partner isn't being in that matriarch role and they're taking on a more masculine role and trying to demand you do things, it's like you'll do it, but you're like, like you're not happy about it. Whereas the matriarch has the ability to make you feel good about doing things. You want to do it.
Well, there's this level of like, you don't fuck with the matriarch like energy, and you know it, and it's powerful, and you want to be a part of it and respect it and help it. And then the matriarch just comes and like lifts you up. Hi, up here. You know? But everyone knows, yeah, you don't mess with her. Don't get on her bad side. And that's great.
It's so true.
You know,
so true.
that the way that makes me feel, the way that puts me, you know, and even Jamie, my partner, she knows the relationship I have with Laura, and how much honor is held into it. And really, I try to get all of the girls to hang out with her, and my mom and her friends, and just to kind of bring this like, hey, look, these are really amazing elder women in our community that are saying like, hey, like, let's get behind each other and support one another. Let's recognize that, hey, these men really are doing the supportive things that you need them to do to go where you want to go. You know, and until you stop and go and look and observe and slow down and not be so worried about stepping on us to get the job done first, because that doesn't matter. That's a fight. That's competition. I've been doing this shit for so long. Trust me, if you want to do it, there is no fight over it. I will kick back at home and work the garden and play with the kids and do the thing. You know, I'm okay with that. For me, the whole role thing, it's like, do what you're good at. Right. Do what, if you're home that day and I'm not, do the role, do the thing. This isn't about women cook and clean and men are carpenters. That's not where I'm going. It's just respect the timing and respect what needs to get done and be in that role and be a leader.
Yeah, there's something that I think has been lost though for men. And I call it, men have lost their swagger, you know, because if you take away that role of the hero, the guy who can go out and do the thing and like brag to his buddies about it, which is just part of being a man, you know, then that feels so satisfying to go out and do something, whether it's, you know, doing the wood chips or, you know, hunting some animal, or going to be like doing some stock trade and like bringing in like tons of money, whatever it is, that thing that a man can do out in the world is so important. And for him to just kind of like be with his friends and talk about that, there's something that is essential. And a woman doesn't realize that she has emasculated men in this way, taken that away and feminized him in asking him to take on the roles that are really not his. It's not that he can't do it, like you're saying. Women can do the strong things and women can do, you know, like we can switch roles. But what we're meant for, what we're actually good at, is not being paid attention to. And like, as we see the nature of things, there's an order to nature. There's like wisdom in nature. And we're completely ignoring it because we're up here and we're like, no, I need this because this is my right, whatever the culture is telling us. But when we're not paying attention to nature, we're fighting it. That's where we can't win. And so certain things happen to us emotionally, and then that turns into like this whole nother dynamic that is out of whack. You know, nature has a certain order. So if women can see that men need to have this role, be the hero, make room for him to be the hero, say, great, you know, and respect, admire, honor each other. I know men honor and respect women, but women are not honoring and respecting men as men and letting them do their thing. And if a woman steps into that matriarchal role, she can feel strong to see that there is a place for her that fits with the male man, with the maleness of what's innate. So then there's not this antagonistic, you were talking about the fight. It's because we're each pulling a tug of war. No, this is what I need. No, this is what I need. But when you have that matriarchal and I don't know what to call it, like heroic combo, the king and the queen basically, then it's a partnership that works. There's no tug of war. They're on the same unified side. And everyone in existence around them feels that and benefits from it. So that's the nature of things. There's nothing chauvinistic or wrong about that. It is how we're born. So this is the new way forward. It's changing the culture. So I'm stepping out to like change the culture. I know that's like, huge, and not everybody will agree with it. Some people will hate me and whatever, but I don't care because I see this. And I see men suffering. I see children really suffering, like all the children that are being confused in these roles that we're telling them they're supposed to be in. And then women are actually suffering. They don't know it. They feel strong in being like strong feminist women, but they're actually suffering. They're trying to do the spinning of the plates, and they're just
I tell you what, I have 3 suffering women in my home.
Yeah.
And they'll tell you that they're on days they're strong, but it's just like, I see struggle. And I've gotten to the point where I'm announcing it. It's like, you guys got to start meeting me over here. I'm meeting you over there. I'm over there. It's overwhelming. It's too much. I need to be met over here. I need to be met on these things. I need to be understood. I need to be heard. And so I'm not willing to participate. When the things start to go down that road, and it's just like, okay, it's time to take a break. We're going to have a conversation about some feminist thing, or I'm like, I want to hear it, but it gets to just the victim. It just goes right to the victim situation. And that to me is there's not a solution there.
The complaining that women do need to be heard by the other women. That's not a man's place to hear all
and
that
not
stuff.
The children, because they're making these complaints in front of the children, and it's making the children hold less and less respect for men in their life.
For both. I mean, they don't respect the women or the men because they're like, why are they just fighting all the time? It just so really for the man, I mean, there is a whole reckoning for the woman to make a huge shift. And that's where it really needs to start to change the foundation. But in the meantime, for men, I don't want to leave men hanging going, you can't do anything, is to realize that this is happening. I think first realize that it's not you, it's not personal, it's the culture. And then to say, okay, so we've got this cultural situation, I see this, but I don't need to play into it, because when we play into it, then it perpetuates it. So like trying to be so feminine, trying to walk on eggshells, trying to appease is confusing it even more.
It is. So, and then it's making it's just like, again, that's like it takes years of training. I would need to go to finishing school for that. I'm a man. I'm like, actually, this is where I'm at.
You have too much to do.
Then I hear that advice, and I've had taken it in the last month of like, and now the women in the house are like, wow, we really see like you're good at bringing people together, and you're creative, and you need your space to like do these amazing things. And it's like, yep, I do. I just need to be trusted. You got to have trust. It's going to be okay here.
And the more you walk your walk, the more they will see. It's not about trying to argue it or verbalize it. It will be apparent that if you just walk your walk as you are, the male and the feminine in you that has been built, because we are who we are. We're not going to go back to necessarily He-Man, like, because men are I keep saying we, men are more feminized today, which brings certain skills, which is great for today. But just continue to walk your walk and realize there is almost a disease happening over here with women. And it's an emotional, mental, cultural disease. So it's causing this dis-ease. So you could see it as a craziness in a sense. And when you try to approach it like to fix it or to really get into it, you can't do so. If you see it as that, then it's like, okay, I'm over here, I'm doing my thing, and eventually they'll go, hey, he's doing okay over there. He's doing that. That kind of makes sense, because that craziness is so much drama. And if you're not in that drama, then you can just do your thing, survive, and go, hey, I'm over here doing my thing. You girls, if you want to do craziness, I'm not going to be part of that. And they'll see how peaceful you are in yourself, and that the women will take a few cues, So I don't know if you have to go, but.
No, I want to just read something to you that I texted yesterday. And it's
sure.
Basically
awesome.
Word for word. And it just says that I'm asking for boundaries, and if not, to be able to have some freedoms to live my life as full and less dramatic as possible.
That is so right on.
And it's fine if like you want to go live in that emotionally crisis. Like literally, I have a text message on my phone at 8:30 in the morning that just says crisis. And I'm thinking to myself, call it professional crisis prevention. We've got one kid at home. It's pretty difficult. And it's just like, we're not even going to the right sources for help anymore.
You are
We're
not
just
the
like
end-all
looking
be-all.
at a man and saying, no, you're the one that fills all these roles. You do this, you do it now. And if not, I'm alone. You're not supporting me.
That is the fallacy.
And if you take the time off to try to assist in this, that, you're just going to ease a little of the pressure, but then you're neglecting what you need to get done, which is taking care of providing for the whole family.
Then you're behind.
And they keep coming to that role of you being the fixer of this emotional thing. The tribe is supposed to do that fixing of women. The man is supposed to do his own thing. And when we can separate that.
So the society is, we can't trust the tribe. You can't have someone from the outside. They're different. We don't know them. We can't trust. How many stories can we write up about this person before we even got their name? Instead of saying, no, wait, we're one here. We're a human. This person has decided to take their life on, to do this role and specialize themselves. I need to allow them in to do their job. And maybe I'll learn something from them. Instead of being like, I know how to do this and you need to do it. It's like, no, we don't know what we're doing. We knew what we were doing, we wouldn't get a text message that said crisis.
Well, I'll tell you where this mistrust came from if you're interested, amongst women. So when women went from the industrial age into the workforce, there was this feminist, like sisterhood for a bit. And then they went into the workforce and they had to compete against men. So they had to put on that power suit, like stand up and be like really manly. And they were competing against men, but they were also competing against women for the job. And then at the same time, just because we are men and women, there's that sexual element of you're not just competing against the women for the job, but also possibly the man. So wherever you turn, you don't have your tribe to lean into, because as a woman, no one has your back. You have to outbest everyone in the workplace. So you hold your secrets safe to your vest, like really close. You can't share what you really know, because someone else is going to use that. Or, so we've lost trust amongst women. That's where this cattiness and drama, and then the you go girl thing makes, and complaining bonds women in a certain unhealthy way. It's like they bond over hate. They bond over complaining rather than the literal, like, no, I've got your back, sister, like lean into me and pour your heart out, and I'm not going to stab you in the back. You know, I'm going to help you and your family. And we've lost that.
And I'm not going to take your side. I'm going to talk about how you're feeling, and I'm going to talk about processing through those feelings, and not just be like, oh yeah, that son of a bitch. You know, it's just like, you got to like really support. If we're going to be in a peer counseling state, we need to be supporting both parties, even though there's only one in our arms, you know?
Looking at the whole picture, the holistic family as a team, and the tribe as a team, and the community as a team. You know, it's like we are so individualistic these days, and we only care about the outcome and the result of what happens to us as individuals, as you know, and then our partner, and then our children. So, and we don't really care about our neighbor, and it shows in this environment, you know, and that's out of the natural order of things, you know. So we really, there's a huge shift that has to happen amongst women, and that trust and mistrust is a big part of it. So it's really understanding this whole, where we've come from and how this was built, because women don't know that they don't trust each other. They just feel it. They just, you know, don't feel safe. And women, you know, nobody's feeling safe, and they're in that crisis mode, you know. So you see that, and men are problem solvers, so they can figure it out on their own to do their own thing and create safety for themselves. But this sickness amongst women continues to be that thorn. It's like
there's a serious lack of that understanding of, like, you know, for me, my thing, when all the stuff hit and I was just watching everything just start to liquefy and everyone losing it, I was like, okay, I'm going to go dive in to see what this is about, you know, occupy and keep working and stay over here. Just like you said, it's like figure out how to just kind of stay out of the way and not, and take as few blows as possible. Because it's interesting how it's become the blame of men in our family, you know, or the woes of the world are due to men.
And it's not. It's the women. It's the fault of women. And
it's our ideas of one another.
What's that?
I think it's our ideas of one another. You know, like we're not communicating enough. We're just creating ideas of one another.
Yeah.
My mother was talking, she was watching this series about like the 1600s and the Queen of England and the Queen of Scots and Ireland. She's like, there was this whole time period where the whole world, like this whole zone, was just ruled by women. And I think like understanding that history and how all that worked would suit more women to understand like the power they have and how it doesn't, you don't have to go out and take every man's job, and you don't have to go out and be stronger than every man to be powerful.
And back then women worked together. I mean, you're saying like there were all these women who were in charge. Well, they were in charge because they're the foundation, but you can't be one woman like taking on everything. You need the support of other women. So that's definitely, looking back is definitely a thing that we can borrow from. Yeah, we're at that point where there needs to be a shift. So there's so many things that, you know, I can go into or talk about, you know, and I'm wondering, is there anything that I can do to help you, like, or did that
I mean, there's always like the processing, you know, always takes us one step closer to better solutions, better communication. And it's different to be, it's a different experience to be heard by a woman that I don't really know, I don't have a relationship with. Because these are things like you would not normally talk to almost a perfect stranger, and especially not another woman.
Exactly.
Oh my God. You know, and I start the conversation off very subtly with my elder women. I'm just like, yeah, I'm being suppressed in my home, and I'm being demasculated, and I don't know how to. And so then it's just like, okay, just watch. I have nothing else. I have no argument here. I can't continue to play into this. If you'll just sit and observe, then you'll see what we're doing here.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
You know, other than that, if you don't have the time and patience to actually get to know what's going on, then there's a whole nother struggle happening that needs to get worked out. And it's not just about the masculine and the feminine.
Yeah.
It's about the inability to slow your mind, be observant, and respect what people are doing around you.
Mm-hmm. And I was going to say also the man is not able to talk to the woman about any of this. And that's why these conversations have to happen where a woman brings it out of a lot of men, where it's like, if just imagine if, say, hundreds of men have conversations like this, and women start to see these conversations, they can take it less personally and say, this is pervasive. This is a condition. This is not me versus my husband and us trying to get what we want from, life. So that's why I feel like, if we can have these conversations, if you know of other men who, I know it seems weird, but will talk to me about this, just have these conversations. The more I collect, the more we put out there, it will become this place where people can go, you should just watch that.